Hey there, I'm U.S. News Editor Simon Owens, and I'm joined today by economics reporter Danielle Kurtzleben. We're discussing Friday's job report and what impact it has on the election. Now, Danielle, today we got this jobs report. We saw that roughly 170,000 jobs have been added to the economy. The unemployment upticked slightly to 7.9%. But what is kind of the larger narrative we've been seeing over the past 4 or 5 months, especially when we see the revisions that were added to previous months today?
Right. Well, what we've been seeing really is signs of an accelerating recovery. We, like you said, aside from the 171,000 jobs we saw this month, we saw substantial revisions to the last 2 months, to the point that the October jobs report, which we got today, posted not just 171,000 new jobs, but when you count the other ones, well over 200,000. I believe it's around 250,000. So that's an excellent sign. I mean, one thing that today's report really points to is that the September report, the one where unemployment ticked down very unexpectedly from 8.1 to 7.8%, that wasn't a fluke. This really shows that there is some life in the economy.
Mm-hmm. And does it show that it's easier to look at the economy through hindsight? I mean, when we look back at August, it was 85,000 originally, and now it's 192,000. Tells a completely different story, right?
I mean, really, what this is in part just sort of a peccadillo of the way that the Labor Department surveys work. They send out, this is from the establishment survey, they send out those surveys to businesses send them back. And ideally they send them back early, but each revision is in part based on the more surveys they get back, fuller information. So as the Labor Department gets fuller information, they can better tweak their estimates.
But it certainly, if it had said 192,000 back then we would have thought differently about where the economy was headed back then, probably.
Certainly, yes. And I mean, and it is important to note that 171,000 is a relatively positive number, also a modest number. But yes, that it could change in the coming months.
And obviously, the reason this jobs report was probably watched more than your average jobs report is because the election's right around the corner. Is this the best case scenario Obama could have hoped for, given the circumstances of where the economy's been heading in the last few months?
It's really hard to even know what to hope for at this point, I would say. I mean, as with any jobs report, good times or bad, there are so many complex factors that go into it. The labor force participation rate, which is, which shows the share of the population that either has a job or is looking for a job. I mean, we generally want that to go up because it shows that people are optimistic and are looking. Then again, we have baby boomers starting to retire. We have younger people in college and in school. That takes them out of the labor force. We don't want that to end. We don't want people to have to work until they're 75. So there's that. That's just one factor. And there are just so many more. So I will say, though, that this was largely positive for President Obama. I think we can say that because aside from, it's showing a substantial growth in jobs, growth in the participation rate, it also, like I said, substantiated September's report. It really showed that, yes, this appears to be a recovery of a real sort.
And some economists have said that whoever wins the presidency isn't going to inherit a much more robust recovery. But we've been teased with this before. I remember last year, around November and December, it got revised up to close to 200,000 jobs, and we looked like we were seeing a recovery only for the spring to see a downturn again. Are you seeing any evidence that this more robust recovery we're all hoping for is just right around the corner?
Right around the corner might be overstating the case. We don't want to, have this idea that boom, 1 month we wake up and suddenly there are 500,000 new jobs created. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that the recovery is a bit stronger than it was a couple of years ago. I believe that the fundamentals are much better than they were even 1 year ago. I mean, we have housing turning the corner. That is huge. Housing has led us out of recoveries in the past. It hasn't thus far in this recovery, but it looks like it could start to play a leading role. The problem is the fiscal cliff. The problem is long-term deficit reduction. Those things, even once the fiscal cliff is passed, even once a solution is found, we're going to have a lot more headwinds. The government is going to have to spend less. Some people may have to be taxed more, and that takes some disposable income away from some people. Aside from that, you have so many headwinds on the economy. You have Europe. You have a slowdown in China and other emerging economies. So really what we can say is this: the economy has shown some moderate growth in spite of a lot of factors, a lot of very heavy factors. That's positive and that's great to see. The thing is, of course, we'd hope that those factors weren't there and we'd like to see them go away.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for joining us at U.S. News and World Report. To learn more, visit us on the web at usnews.com.